Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The continuing story of judicial reform in Poland took another turn today. The disciplinary chamber of the Polish Supreme Court suspended a judge from the city of Olsztyn and imposed a 40% cut in salary. The judge had persistently demanded copies of the enclosures to the applications made by candidates for judicial office to the National Council of the Judiciary. This is a violation of the law of 12th of May 2011, which provides that only applications themselves and not the enclosures are to be made available.
Judge Paweł Juszczyszyn is suspended with a 40% pay cut. This is the decision of the Appellate Court of the Disciplinary Chamber of the Polish Supreme Court. In the sentence, the court pointed out that the suspended judge endangers the good name of both the judiciary branch and the state treasury. The deputy spokesman for the Disciplinary Chamber described actions of the suspended judge as a performance by a celebrity who declares a war against his own country. The opposition does not agree with this opinion, and some of them maintain that the Disciplinary Chamber should not take action, and according to them, it is illegal.
This matter in fact shows us through a magnifying glass what is the essence of this controversy. Either demand an adequate punishment for judges who violate the law or are against the judicial ethics, or do not punish. In other words, when we see a violation committed by a judge, the question is whether to make them take responsibility or hide them behind judicial immunity.
Paweł Juszczyszyn's defenders claim that the verdict is not valid because the disciplinary chamber of the Supreme Court was created by the new National Council of the Judiciary, which was founded by judges with unknown supporters when they filed their applications. Everything goes back to the National Council of the Judiciary Act of May 12, 2011, an act which was voted in by the parliament when the opposition had the majority. That act says clearly that the applications are to be public except the enclosures, which are confidential. Some of the judges fight for disclosure of who gave referrals to the candidates. The suspended Judge Juszczyszyn is one of them. His supporters say that he's going to ignore the verdict and will report to work tomorrow morning. The Chief of Justice of the Olsztyn Court says that the disciplinary chamber of the Supreme Court verdict will be respected and is fully valid. One thing is certain, tomorrow morning the cameras will be waiting at the court entrance in Olsztyn.
The President of North Macedonia, Stevo Pendrovski, came to Poland on an official visit. Poland supports the Balkan states' efforts to join the European Union. Among the topics discussed during the talks in Warsaw was the sale of Rosomak armoured vehicles to Macedonia.
North Macedonia has begun the procedure to acquire membership of the European Union. I reassured the President that Poland firmly supports his country's efforts. We believe that the doors to the EU should always be open to those who want to join this community. It's especially important in light of Brexit to show that the European Union is still attractive to all European states. Poland is North Macedonia's strategic partner on its journey to join the European Union and soon also NATO. We talked about many important subjects and I give my thanks for the quick ratification of the motion to join NATO, which will take place after a proper resolution is adopted by the Spanish Parliament. All EU member states should now come together and appoint the date of the negotiations so we could join this community.
French President Emmanuel Macron presented his vision for the future of Europe during the second day of his visit to Poland. Speaking at the Jagiellonian University in Krakow, the capital of Poland until 1596, Macron also touched on Polish-French relations, both now and in the past.
No country should give lessons to another. I touched on this subject during the talks with the President and Prime Minister. We are concerned with the judicial reform in Poland, but it's not France who should give Poland advice. Our duty is to defend the values of our common European treaties. This is our responsibility. We want to be a vector of these values.
Has the coronavirus reached Poland? Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, the Ministry of Health will present the results of tests on 30 Poles evacuated from the city of Wuhan, the virus outbreak's epicenter. The coronavirus has already claimed 400 lives in China. Wuhan and a number of other metropolises in China are now under quarantine, in effect turning them into ghost towns.
The threat is not limited to Wuhan alone, as the virus is spreading across China and beyond. The situation has become so dangerous that the European Commission has called on member states to provide information about airport checks-up and other security measures they are applying in the fight against the spread of the epidemic. The World Health Organization has also spoken about the virus.
As you know, we have the executive board, so we have intense discussion with our member states to see how we can harmonize the practices and making sure that everybody share experience, what works best, and then so that other countries can implement what works best from their opinion.
According to a spokeswoman for the Taiwanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there is a problem in communication about the virus between China and Taiwan. We have seen the Chinese government rudely and unreasonably pressuring Taiwan on the international stage and putting political considerations above human health. We have seen that the disease has no national boundaries and epidemic prevention around the world should have no loopholes. They are putting political considerations over people's health and safety, which is extremely vile. Furthermore, we Taiwanese strongly condemn and dismiss China's overbearing behavior of publicly spreading lies. Hong Kong announced the death of the first patient affected by the coronavirus. Health authorities reported that the 39-year-old victim had a pre-existing chronic illness and had visited Wuhan in January before falling ill. So far, 15 cases of coronavirus infection have been recorded in Hong Kong.
In his last days, we saw that he was coughing a lot more, but today, all of a sudden, his situation became worse. His heart stopped and we tried to resuscitate him, but unfortunately we failed and the patient died.
Wuhan residents are forbidden to leave their houses and are forced to wear face masks. There is no access to public transport, the main roads have been closed, and is the airport. Wuhan is described as a ghost town. The streets have been empty at a time when normally millions would have been celebrating the Chinese New Year. According to specialists, the coronavirus is more contagious than previously thought. The virus is airborne and can be transmitted by touch. It has already killed 427 people. The total number of those infected in China has increased to 20,438, and 23 other countries have reported more than 170 infections. The 30 Poles evacuated from Wuhan are being treated by 11 nurses, 4 doctors, and a specialist in infectious diseases. The results of their tests for the presence of the coronavirus should be known soon.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, business, and more programs. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. Another warm night ahead of us. Almost in the whole country we will notice temperature above zero. The highest we will see on the south, 5 degrees. Zero is expected in Białystok and there snow with rain will appear. In the rest of the country rainfalls will occur except Bydgoszcz. In central and on the northwest temperature will hover around 3 degrees. And now over to tomorrow. A sunny day all over Poland with some snowfall expected on the south and over Białystok. The temperature will range from 1 degree to maximum 5 degrees in Szczecin and Koszalin. Let's see the forecast for the next days. Thursday will be a rainy day with temperatures ranging between 3 degrees to 5. On Friday we will see more clouds on the west. Snow is expected in central and on the southeast. Pressure will rise. On Saturday, temperature will range from -1 degree to 6 degrees along the Baltic coast. Loads of sun will appear around Białystok and in central Poland. Thank you for watching and good night.
Poland Daily Business Edition, and tonight we will talk with Jerzy Bielewicz, financial analyst and Gazeta Bankowa writer. Sir, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
We are looking at the United States' politics, and obviously the Iowa caucus is one major event that everyone was waiting for months in order to check out which Democratic runner is best, who will be closer to the Democratic nomination for 2020 presidential election, and we know nothing now.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit funny, but we know that counting is not that difficult. But we had similar problems in Poland. We have similar candidates in Poland, Mrs. Kidawa-Błońska. I think it's very, very dangerous for the United States to change its president from Donald Trump to, for example, Bernie Sanders. It would be disastrous for world economy if Bernie Sanders would become next president of the United States.
Generally speaking, we see that the Democrats have no idea that may replace this "Make America Great Again" slogan of Donald Trump, or if they have, this is a Bernie Sanders socialistic state. I don't think the socialism would work in the United States.
The world changed with Donald Trump, and I think it's a very good president for the United States, and America First works for the United States, and surprise, surprise, works for Poland. Poland become a key player on geopolitical scene, and
isn't
has
it
all
an
the
exaggeration? Key player, Poland?
Exactly.
With the GDP of a quarter of Germany, with population half of Germany, and there is France, UK, Russia. How could Poland be a key player?
But that's the situation. Look who plays a key role in European politics right now. It's Poland. I would put an analogy on the table. The change in power in Poland would be very, very disastrous for not only Poland, but for European Union and for geopolitical order all around the world, I would say. Look at latest events, for example, Macron visit to Poland. And this is the politician who said so many bad things about Poland, Polish society, Polish political system. And here you are. The Great Britain is out of European Union. Macron is in Poland.
This is his first visit after almost 3 years in power, and it puts us in the same camp of the countries that Emmanuel Macron visited once, as Burkina Faso, Angola, and Ivory Coast.
But that's the sign of the time, that we are right now very, very important player in European Union, and the trustworthy partner of the United States in Europe. And politics is very analogous in the United States and in Poland. We've got this right-wing political parties in power, and a lot of hate and fake news on the other side. I would say the other side is disorganized, as Democrats in Iowa showed, that they cannot count. They are not able to count the votes. Which is very.
I cannot sit here with a straight face when I see such a disgrace. I mean, this is the organization that took them months to prepare. They were kind of readying for themselves. They were different camps of different candidates were preparing for it, and such a flop. It tells everything about this country and this policy.
I wouldn't say that the country. Yeah, I would say that the change in power in the United States would be bigger than coronavirus in China at this point, because Republicans just changed the way the politics is done in the United States. And remember the situation Obama years when the United States withdrew from Europe, from Middle East, from other regions, and compare it to the current situation. We've got the United States that signed the trade agreement with China. We've got the United States that changes the balance of power in several regions, as in Central Europe, for example, with the entry to energy sector in Central Europe and alliance with Poland. It's a quality change, enormous quality change, and let's keep it this way. And I think it's good that Democrats show how organized they are.
This is actually a very important meeting, because everyone knows that it was the Iowa caucus 2008 when that elevated the Obama to the prominent position in Iran and eventually gave him a presidential nomination. So with this disarray, we may rest assured that the chances of Donald Trump of winning and continuing this policy that is beneficiary to our country in many ways will be assured and continued.
It's a good sentence to sum it up. Yeah, we are with Donald Trump as a president of the United States.
We will see that on November 2020. Jerzy Bielewicz, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.
And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. A sunny day all over Poland with some snowfall expected on the south and over Białystok. The temperature will range from 1 degree to maximum 5 in Szczecin and Koszalin. Pressure will start to grow up. And now let's see tomorrow's forecast for our continent. Sun will dominate on the south. In Central Europe, more rainfalls will appear. In Scandinavia, temperature will fall to -1 degree in Oslo. The highest we will notice in Lisbon, 20 degrees. In British Island, weather will improve. Sky will clear up. Temperature will increase. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and you are watching Poland Daily Culture. Sir Roger Scruton was a philosopher, public commentator, and an author of over 40 books. He also became a very dear friend of Poland. He has left us recently after a struggle with lung cancer. Today with me in the studio is Jonathan Price, one of his former students and now a doctor in philosophy. Jonathan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
But before we start with the interview, let's hear what Sir Roger has to say.
The long-term question is about our identity. It's not about our economic success or failure. The identity of a country is that which makes it possible for it to be ruled. The sense that we share something which brings us together, which enables us to accept being governed by people we didn't vote for, as I think has already been said, and to join together in crises to resolve our collective problem. We act collectively. We can only do this because we trust each other. Trust and belonging is what it's all about.
Let's discuss political views of Roger Scruton. Politically, he was a kind critic of European Union. And what was his criticism based on?
It's not his words, but I think it could be summed up in saying that the European Union has become, for many, a new church, a new international moral body, an arbiter of what democracy, human rights, and rule of law mean. Whereas its more modest goals originally, including a free market across Europe, and including peaceful treaty-based relations of cultures and nations with that were similar enough, I think those were in line with his understanding of what would have been good for Europe. As it became clearer and clearer that it was a project of empire, or had ambitions of being a project of empire. He returned to his understanding of the own empire he was part of, his own empire, the empire that he was part of, which was the British Empire, as it had been, and to England as a settlement that might be endangered if there were imperial ambitions between France and Germany.
And as many surveys shows, actually societies and people don't really know who are their representatives in European Union, though they have a huge bureaucratic role. And I've seen surveys which show that we actually we can point out 1 or 2 members of European Parliament and not more, which means is that we actually don't know who is making those decisions, and the European law is above the nation law, which probably is one of the things which actually really bothers Scruton, that European Union is above common law as well.
Yeah, the common law tradition in Britain, especially, I mean, it's not in Scotland. Scotland is Roman law, but especially in England and Wales, was something he was very attached to. And that's especially because it was a case-based form of reasoning, meaning we don't develop a law for something until there's a problem.
That's very interesting to say.
We don't overthink it. We don't overthink it. So there's a problem. And the early Roman law was like this, case-based. Many legal systems historically have been like this. That is, they're not obsessed with statute. They don't believe that having a law book means one has law or law-abidingness.
Yes, and Scruton favored rather the idea of national states as a form of natural way of revolving and developing groups, societies.
Yeah, I think he might say something, as I suppose Winston Churchill is rumored to have said about democracy. You know, the nation state is the worst of all political settlements except for all the rest. You know, so a tribe or a clan on the one hand, or some form of empire or a larger confederacy on the other. And the nation-state falls in the middle. It's small enough to share our concern with, my concern and the concern of my nation, but it's large enough that it can be an actor in the world that represents the concerns of people like me. And he was attached to it, I think, somewhat reluctantly, but ultimately as the only viable form of political community in the modern world.
In a way that also people can feel attached to and take care of, yes, because probably the members of European Union don't really so badly want to take care of the whole European Union and, I don't know, clean it up or...
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt the sincerity of the members of the European Union, which you didn't sound like you were either, but I think what they want to do is maybe sincerely wrong in certain capacities. That is, you know, if there's 28 commissioners in an executive body, there probably isn't enough work that needs to be done at that level to fill all of their days. And so they need to go look for things to fix, yeah? And that's a problem when powerful people go around looking for things to fix, yeah?
Yes, then you have such kind of rules that banana is not fruit, or very strict looks to fishing in Britain, which I know destroyed the fish market in London, for example. Lots of other stuff which are completely strange.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a political system without knock-on effects, but somehow if I understand that my consent or assent to the system is related to the burdens I bear, then it seems more natural. Whereas if I feel it's imposed on me, it seems unnatural and unwarranted.
Scruton wrote a lot about subsidiarity principle, which is taken from Catholic social teachings, and it states that a central authority should have a subsidiary function performing only those tasks which cannot be performed at a more local level. So could you explain more what this principle means?
Yeah, this might be a good way also to explain why he disliked the European Union, which, as you know, has a principle of subsidiarity as one of its best practices and declared principles. Subsidiarity actually says things shouldn't be moved up to a higher level unless or until they cannot be handled at the lower level. So there's no need for another level if the problems can be solved at a lower level. And importantly, it is the lower level that gives up the power to any higher level, rather than, as he understood it and said on many occasions, the European Union seems to think that subsidiarity means someone, somewhere, either Strasbourg, Brussels, or Luxembourg, or other places, gets to decide at which level things should be decided and where problems exist and where they should be solved, which would be the equivalent in the Catholic Church of the Pope being given all the power to determine at which level any decision is made. That's not the history of Catholic councils and of the determination of doctrine and whatnot, although the Pope does have quite a bit of power. If the European Union, the new church, had this kind of power, it would be more powerful than the Pope.
That's pretty true. But I would say it's important to say, so for example, because people from village know the best when they want their road or where they want their shop or something else. And that's why when it's decided by the central authority, it's usually decided wrong.
Yeah. It's not that village life or small shops or small farms are to be supported just in themselves. There's not a romanticism about them, even if they are lovely and they have goods. It's that knowledge is always local. And even data are collections of and analyses of local knowledge, of anecdote, yeah? So when someone says studies show, what they're often telling you is, we collected a lot of local knowledge from those who know, and now, through analysis and the methodology we've developed, we can tell you something. But without that local knowledge, the result of the analysis is worthless. So yes, local people know, in most cases, what they would like to have done. Politics, then, is a question of, is it possible for them to get what they want?
I think it's worth to think it through, that the knowledge is always local, and it's important to resolve the problems on the lowest level it's possible. And this was one of the thoughts which Roger Scruton developed more and more, especially in the critics of European Union. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.
Welcome back to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson, and in the studio, Professor Krzysztof Jabłonka, and we're going to talk now about another major neighbour of Poland, that is Ukraine. Professor, Ukraine, a huge country now, a very important neighbour of Poland. There have been, I think, in history, several attempts to create a proper Polish-Ukrainian sort of confederation or union. The first of these, I think, was in 1658. Could you say a few words about what led to this and what the result was?
Dodać należy, że Piłsudski na Syberii, gdy był zesłany...
It should be added that Piłsudski, when he was in exile in Siberia, met a local doctor of Ukrainian origin who explained to him the difference between Ukrainians and Russians, and thus also Poles. Piłsudski understood the aspirations of Ukraine. He realized that they were at an earlier stage than the Poles. Poles had great intelligence, even magnates. It was a certain degree of independence that the invaders had to reckon with. Only the Austrian monarchy treated Ukraine with respect. Piłsudski was able to impose on Poles a kind of respect for Ukraine, which caused Poland to treat the reborn Ukrainian state after World War I seriously, establishing diplomatic contacts. Unfortunately, in 1918, not one, but two Ukrainian states were reborn, the latter being definitely anti-Polish. Piłsudski did not establish relations with this country. It was a country in the so-called Eastern Galicia known as Halicina, which decided to attack Poland. We were at war with them until mid-1919. However, with the first country ruled by Szymon Petliur, who led Ukraine's struggle for independence, we made two agreements. In April 1920, a military agreement, and later a political agreement in which both countries considered themselves equal, the heirs of the former republic. According to this agreement, Poland came to Ukraine's aid when Ukraine started a war with the Bolsheviks for its liberation. Unfortunately, it ended in a catastrophe. Szymon Budyonny's powerful cavalry arrived at the Polish front, could not stand it anymore. In order to save the army and not allow to be surrounded, Polish troops have to withdraw. Eventually, however, Poles and Ukrainians defeated Budyonny's army. The example of the defense of the Polish town of Zamość by the Ukrainian general Marko Bezruczko became a legend. This military commander drove Budyonny's army away, and then the Poles and Ukrainians, in a powerful and the last in the 20th century horse-drawn charge, defeated the Bolsheviks, and we were given the land we had lost before. Unfortunately, however, the Poles did not have the strength to help the rest of Ukraine, the Kievan Ukraine, to regain independence. We were dependent on the supply of ammunition, and when France cut off our ammunition supply, we were forced to end the war. For this reason, a truce was signed, and then the Treaty of Riga.
I trzeba było wojnę kończyć. No i stąd rozejm, a potem traktat ryski.
Could we say some words about the earlier attempt at the Polish-Ukrainian union in 1658?
Previous relations between Poland and Ukraine were quite specific. In the 14th century, Ukraine, as a state of Kievan Ruthenia, was broken up by a powerful invasion of the Mongols, from whom it was liberated by the Lithuanian army. A great battle of Kulikovo in 1380 took place, where the Tatars were defeated and the territories occupied by them were liberated by Lithuanians. When they made a deal with Poland, these areas became our common land. This was until the Union of Lublin was renewed. The Lithuanians broke off contacts with the King of Poland, insulted him, and the king, by his power and decision, transferred the Ukrainian territories to the Polish rule. He thus led to the unification of Poland with Ukraine. At that time, a very clear agreement was made. Lithuania and Belarus created the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and Poland with Ukraine created the Crown. The Crown of the Kingdom of Poland was formed, and representatives of Ukraine entered the common Sejm of the Republic. Magnates living on these lands very quickly became Polish magnates. Almost all magnates are former Ruthenians. The situation of the peasants was completely the opposite. Polish peasants fled to Ukraine because they could be free there. In this way, a conflict arose between the magnates, so the nobility, and the Cossacks. However, it is worth noting that Poles and Ukrainians were members of both groups, so it was not a national conflict, but a social one. Eventually, the Cossacks got ennobled, but only partially, and it was still too late. The Treaty of Haldia was concluded in 1658, which established a separate, third state of the Republic of Poland, the Grand Duchy of Ruthenia. The opponents of this movement were both the magnates of the Republic, most of whom were Ruthenians themselves, and the Duchy of Moscow. This led to the eventual liquidation of this state, separated on the Dnieper River. The lands to the east of the Dnieper River went to the Duchy of Moscow, which finally destroyed the Cossack autonomy, and the land located to the west of the Dnieper River remained with the Republic. It is worth mentioning that today in Ukraine, only the part that survived under the Republic of Poland speaks Ukrainian. The part that got into the hands of the Grand Duchy of Moscow, and later the Tsarist Russia, speaks mostly Russian nowadays.
W zasadzie mówi po rosyjsku.
Well, Professor, that's been fascinating. Thank you very much for coming to the studio. Thank you for watching Poland Daily History. Join us again when we look at more exciting episodes from the history of Poland.
everybody, and welcome to another sterling edition of Poland Daily Travel, your favorite travel show about Poland, I hope. And with me in the studio is the brilliant and effervescent and sartorially elegant, as usual, Nicholas, no relation, Richardson. Nicholas, how are you today?
Fine. Well, thank you for inviting me yet again.
It's my pleasure.
My pleasure to be here.
It's not our first rodeo, is it?
It's not our, as you always say, it's not our first rodeo.
No. We're going to do, in this series, in the studio, we're going to be talking to a couple of other guests. We're going to have Guy Pinsent, who has appeared on my talk show a few times, and the illustrious Craig Smith, both longtime residents.
In fact, I remember
Yeah.
when Craig first arrived in Warsaw.
Oh, you've known each other?
His first day, I still remember meeting him in the Marriott Hotel.
Is that right?
In the lobby bar. Yeah, I can even remember
yeah.
what he was wearing. I mean, just kind of spooky, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Because he was probably the only man in Warsaw in October in those days wearing training shoes and shorts. But anyway.
He was wearing training shoes and
shorts. Yeah.
Do you remember what color they were?
Well, I can't remember what colour they were now, actually.
No,
but he'd just come in from Los Angeles
Good,
or
because
somewhere warm.
I was starting to worry.
Yes. But, you know, I find that people...
About your proclivities.
No, they're not proclivities.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, it was just noticeable because obviously not many other people on that Sunday, I think it was a Sunday actually, were actually wearing shorts in central Warsaw. But of course, nobody else had probably just come off the plane from Los Angeles. So.
And this was before the Vietnam War. This was
a long time ago, yes.
This was... that was the year Goldfinger came out, I believe.
It was the year Goldfinger came out, yes.
No,
I just got back from filming it, yes.
It wasn't. No, listen.
Yes.
This program and this little segment, I wanted to we're going to be talking about experiences of traveling to Poland and in Poland with Guy and then with Craig, and they have a lot to say, so that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. But what about your first impressions of Warsaw and of Poland? Because I see on the internet a lot people putting their first impressions of Poland, and almost inevitably, it's just them doing stuff like drinking coffee and go, hey, they have coffee.
Yes.
Look, they have vegan food. Wow. And then there's a picture of them eating or dancing, but there's not much about the actual history or anything that sets this apart. Coming to Poland sets it apart from anywhere else where you might be able to drink coffee and take pictures of yourself doing it. I think traveling, to me anyway, having been a few places, a fair few, and lived in a few countries, and that was just last year.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
I know you are.
Yeah, just kidding.
But I don't want to lull you to false sense of security, so when you joke, I will not laugh. Sorry.
What?
No, never mind.
Okay, I'm not paying you then. So I'm not paying you anyway.
Say business as usual.
Exactly.
Exactly, yes.
You're not getting
I'm
paid.
here on my own time, yes.
Well, there's no hope now.
There's absolutely no hope at all.
I did promise you that
you did.
Jack Benny.
You did say there may be a cup of coffee in it.
Who's Jack Benny? People are going to be going. Anybody who's
he's an
under 80 years old.
He's obviously American.
Yeah, he's a famous comedian.
So your question was, yes.
If you know comedy, you would know.
First impressions. Well, I remember actually my very first impression. It wasn't actually technically my first visit to Warsaw, but when I arrived to sort of take up employment here, and it was in October, Sunday afternoon. I got on the airplane from England, and it arrived as it was just dusk was falling, rain was falling, and I arrived at this and it was not the airport we have now. It was the previous manifestation of the airport, so it's rather.
It's more like an airfield than an airport.
Well, it was actually not. I'd seen the previous version, which definitely was more like an airfield. This was sort of the
in-between version.
The in-between. Yeah. And I thought, and I arrived and I got my way through the immigration and so forth, collected my suitcases, found a taxi, got myself to the Victoria Hotel, and looked around, and eventually got myself to the dining room, which was a Sunday night. So I was the only person eating there, and I looked around and I thought to myself, what have I done?
What have I got myself into?
When is the next plane back?
Yeah.
But I sort of survived that day, and then the next day.
This was just in the 90s, not the 1940s.
No, this was
only the 90s.
It was only the 90s, but I mean the thing that many people will not appreciate is if you come to Warsaw today, the skyline is wholly different as it was in the 90s. I mean, a lot of the big buildings in the centre weren't actually there.
And there's actually food.
And there was a food. It was
There are
very
actual
nice
restaurants.
food. Very nice food in the hotel. And the next day, the challenge was finding.
I mean, now there's a lot of choices. Back then, not so many.
And
choices.
the next day the challenge was finding my way to the office, which I found my way to the office eventually, because in typical fashion.
That was the law office. That
it
you
was
were going
the
to
law office in
work
those days. Yeah, Baker and McKenzie, a very well-known international law firm.
Yeah.
And I was just struck by how, in a funny sort of how different things were. It was very close. So people were quite excited. People in the office that they could telephone in order for pizza, and the pizza was delivered. I mean, things that we had taken for granted for a long time were, of course, relatively new here. But people were very friendly and very helpful. But you just realise that it was slightly, a lot of things I had taken for granted, even simple things like getting money out of a machine in the wall, were not possible here at that stage.
Yeah.
If you went to get money out on a plastic card, which you could do, you went to a bank, and it was fantastic. You queued up, and then this transaction occupied 5 or 6 people as they took your card and looked at it, and eventually you got your money. And it's actually quite fascinating. And there was one, in those days, there was one machine, a hole in the wall, at the American Express office in Krakowskie Przedmieście, which worked. Although drawing cash on an American Express card is not a financially sensible operation.
You used to be actually get money at American Express, yeah.
But it worked. But the funny thing is, I was years ago at the British ambassador's place here, in Bagatella, before they got rid of this wonderful house. I was invited to something by mistake, as it turned out, but I went, and Michael Palin, who had been filming his Europe series, and he was talking about it, and he'd been filming something in Poland. I got into a chat with him, and I was saying, when you film these things, do you film them all at once or do you travel? He said, well, when we were younger, we used to go away for 2 months at a time. He said, now we're all old, we tend to fly home at the weekends. and he was asking me how long I'd been.
He doesn't stay on set.
And he was asking me how long I'd been in Poland. We'd be chatting away. And he said, you must have seen lots of changes, because this was, I'd been here about 16 years at that point. And I said, yes, the physical landscape is different. A lot of the buildings that you see now.
What sort of year were you talking to him?
This must have been about 10 years ago. Not about 8 years ago, sorry.
Yeah, because he was...
Yes, it was just after he'd made that series about Poland and this part of the world. Yeah. And I said, a lot of the things we now take for granted are not available. And
That's
I said,
a good place to stop.
No, we can't just, because I've got to finish the story.
Stop there.
No, we've got to, no, because this is good. And I said, things that you just take for granted, like machines where you get money out of the wall. And then I to my horror, I heard myself saying, and you tell that to young folk today and they don't believe it, which of course is the punchline from the Four Yorkshiremen sketch.
The Yorkshiremen sketch.
But of course, he must have heard it millions of times, but because we were in the British Ambassador's house, and because we were both at the same Oxford College, obviously not at the same time, he sort of burst out laughing.
What college? Brasenose.
Brasenose, yeah. So
also the College of Nicholas Richardson and
Michael Palin.
Michael Palin and William Golding.
William Golding and Field Marshal Haig and David Cameron.
Excellent. That's a good place to stop. Stay tuned for the next exciting episode where we will talk more about Poland and traveling to Poland and traveling in Poland today with our guest, Guy Pinsent. See you next time.